Hello and welcome to StroongeCast episode 38.
Animal Encounters of the Stroonge Kind.
Now, isn't that just a fun title?
You came up with this and it's the best. I think you came up with it on last week's episode, didn't you?
At the very end.
Yeah.
It was going to be Strange Kind, and I thought, what am I doing?
No, this is perfect. You did a great job there.
So how's it been? It's been a busy week.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like it's gone quickly. Everybody I've spoken to says this week's gone really fast.
It has.
I don't really know what we've done. Well, you've been busy, obviously, since we recorded on Friday, which was your birthday. So you had your birthday afternoon.
I did.
Presents and family and stuff. Then you went out again on Sunday for your birthday.
Yep.
For lots of food.
Oh boy, the food was so good.
And then, I don't think we've really done much.
No.
Really, just usual stuff. Nothing exciting anyway.
Apart from yesterday.
Apart from yesterday, but that's your story to tell.
Right then. So yeah, as you say, on Friday last week, it was a birthday. And I opened a lot of fun things. And I'm sitting in one of them. New chair. Needed a new chair because my other chair was sinking. And at some point in pretty much every episode, I would kind of jump up and pull the lever and sit down again. And you'd never know because noise cancelling is a good thing. But it happened. And I'd be reading a book or playing the keyboard. And I would have to do that mid-flow. And it's just very irritating. So that was nice not to have to do that. And Jake and I put that together with my LTD screwdriver.
And Alice, she helped a little bit.
She did actually, didn't she, at the end?
Yeah.
When my dad appeared, which was nice, and he bought a massive cake. We had already one cake in the house.
Yeah.
And then we had two cakes.
We ended up with 3 cakes because I'd made a cake and then I'd bought a cake for those that don't like the made cake. And then he'd bought a cake. So we just had absolutely tons of cake. Yeah.
You made me a coffee cake.
Made you a coffee cake with walnuts on top.
Yeah.
And then I bought a small chocolate cake for those of us that don't eat the coffee cake.
Yep.
And then your dad came with the cake, which was
The Victoria Sponge, wasn't it?
Victoria Sponge, but it had like this kind of cream white icing all around it. It was amazing. And your name on it, Happy Birthday Andre on it. It was really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I got to see my 2 youngest brothers that I don't see very often as well. So it was nice to see them.
Yeah.
And my youngest of the youngest brothers is quite a good piano player, actually.
Yeah, he really is.
He's going to go far.
Yeah.
Then Sunday, I went out with my brother Dwayne to my favourite Chinese restaurant in all of London called Old Town 97. If anybody is in town and wants to go check it out, it's on Waldorf Street. Go there. Enjoy the foods. And I introduced Jake to roast duck. And we both agreed it was fantastic. So that was nice as well. And then, the rest of the week, apart from yesterday, the Thursday, was quite quiet. But I decided I was going to treat myself for my present to myself this year to the Nintendo Switch 2. And I made a very, very short accessibility video on the TTS functions of the Switch 2, which you can find on my YouTube channel for the curious. And it just basically shows you what it sounds like to use the screen reader part of it. And I will be doing a longer recording at some point because someone wants me to go through the menus and what they sound like with the screen reader. So I shall do that too. I was going to do it before the podcast, but then I got into playing a new game, so I didn't do that. So we come to the quiz question from last week, which I think somebody answered correctly, but I don't remember who it was. I know I emailed it over to you, but I don't recall.
I can't remember, I'm afraid. But it was, what was the name of the first cloned animal?
Yeah, someone definitely in the YouTube comments did get that right.
But I think it was quite early on, and I don't have that right now. But you are correct. It is Dolly.
Yes.
She was a sheep.
She was a sheep.
Yeah.
Might have been Bradley who got it right, but I don't know. Yes.
So the question, as we are animal themed
today,
probably my favorite episode ever, we have an animal question. Although quite a few of them are animal related, but that's just how it is, I'm afraid. Which very small animal has around 14,000 teeth?
What the hell?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you guess this, I will do something very strange. I don't know. But it's just, there is no way that you would ever, you personally, I mean, the listeners maybe, they might be.
But me.
But you
I will never guess this.
definitely will never guess this.
No, you're right. Because I am clueless where things like that are concerned.
You'll be very, very surprised.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to rely on the YouTube comments to teach me something because I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the meat and potato of today's episode all about?
So, 2 weekends ago at my parents', we had a very strange animal encounter. And that led us to think of some other strange things that have also happened. And so we thought, let's put it out there and
as we have been doing for recent episodes, stick it out there on Mastodon and get some responses.
Get some stories from people.
It's been really fun, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I love it.
You've connected with some new people, and that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So I will start with the story that kicked off the idea. So it's a Saturday, and the kids and I are at my parents' house. And, as we do every weekend, just normal stuff. We've got our dog, Penny. They've got their dog, Dudley. We're all just sort of hanging out. And they have like the living room and dining room is one long room, kind of separated just by a chair, basically. It's just one long room. So we're always all down there, whatever. In their living room, they have a fireplace. What would have been it is a working fireplace if you want to use it. So we're all sat. Half of us are in the living room. I'm at the table, the dining room, whatever. And there is some strange dropping noises, like if you imagine like scrunched up leaves, little stones falling, something is falling down, little bits are falling down through the chimney and landing on the coals at the bottom. And both my mum and Alice look, because they're seeing all these little bits falling out of the chimney, for a squirrel to tumble out of the chimney and go splat onto the floor in front, and then look completely shocked for a few seconds because it doesn't understand or know what's just happened. Then both of the dogs, who are Jack Russells, and if anybody knows about Jack Russells, they were originally bred as rat catchers to keep away rats and small mammals, so mice and things like that. So quite often they're kept on farms and things to keep down the population. So their instinct for small furry things like that is to chase, hunt, kill. So they both then go, "Oh my god, squirrel!" and they run for the squirrel.
Lovely bit of squirrel.
The poor little squirrel then runs to the side, and there's a lot of stuff in my parents' house. So the squirrel is running around like up and down this long stretch of room, trying to find a way out. Everybody's sort of panicking, trying to grab the dogs because, I would really find it quite awful if Penny or Dudley bit and killed a squirrel. It would just be really horrible. But then I was also really worried about what if the squirrel bit them? They can have diseases. You don't know. So we're trying to catch the dogs. My dad is stood by the back door while the dogs are running up and down. I'm trying to push my dad out of the way because he's just like, whoa, whoa. I'm trying to push him out of the way.
How can he be so clueless?
He was just stood there on his phone. He says he wasn't on his phone. He 100% was on his phone. While I'm saying, move out of the way so that I can pick up Penny because I thought that she had cornered the squirrel. Anyway, I ended up shoving him out of the way and I managed to grab hold of her. She didn't have the squirrel. It had run by that point. So I'm holding her. We're trying to chase the squirrel up and down. This goes on for a while. In the end, I had to give Penny to Alice. Jake managed to catch Dudley so that they were secure. The squirrel was then running around the big box of dog toys that are by the radiator.
Wow.
We managed to open both of the doors, the back and the front door, to try and get the squirrel, encourage it out. But of course it was freaking out, this poor little squirrel. And it had wedged itself half behind the back of the radiator.
And the wall.
And the wall, yeah. So the radiator and the wall, half of its body is behind there. So I've got one of Dudley's blankets because it's the biggest and only thing that I could think of. My mum is trying to get hold of something to grab it. So I'm watching it and I said, there's a box, grab the box. And I thought if I could try and encourage it into the box, then we could take it outside. But in the space of 2 seconds that I turn around to say to my mum, look, use that box, the squirrel shoots past us all the way down the other end of the room and out the back door, thankfully. And that was okay. And then the dog spent the next hour and a half sniffing every single millimeter
Of the house.
of the house where that squirrel had been. And even last weekend when we went back, the first thing Penny did when she got there was go to the back of the radiator and sniff to see if the squirrel was there, because she remembers. So that was the squirrel incident. But that's not the first animal that has come down that chimney.
But we should call that the squincident of 2025.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but there was a lot of commotion downstairs very early in the morning, and my dad thought that perhaps that somebody was breaking into the house because there were things knocking over and there was just a lot of noise. And when he comes down to check it out, there are 2 fully grown seagulls flapping around in the house up and down trying to get out. And seagulls are big. They're not like, little pigeons. A pigeon would be bad enough. They're huge with big wingspans. And they had just somehow managed to fit down the chimney together, plopped out. There was soot and dust and birds, when they freak out, they poop everywhere. So they're flapping around.
We know this. And
because we've had our own.
Forgot about that story.
No, I haven't forgotten. Trust me. That will be coming later.
Oh dear.
So they're flapping around. My dad shouts for my mum. And my dad is not great in these situations. He's great if it was a person that had been breaking in, he would have been great. He would have sorted that. But if it's an animal or a weird situation like that, he's not so great. So it's my mum, who is little, and she's not frail, but she
is quite
feisty.
Unflappable, though.
She really is, and she just takes on that kind of, we just have to sort it out. So they can't catch these birds because they're freaking out. They covered the entire downstairs. They were everywhere, in the kitchen, at the windows, throwing themselves around, smashing glasses, pooping everywhere. I mean, it was just a state, awful state. She has to get a broom and basically sort of smush the birds up against the wall to get hold of them, to shove them out of the back door.
Wow.
Yeah, they were fine. They flew off after a while. They were fine. So that was that. They've also had a small bird years and years ago, a very, very small bird, plop out of the
chimney again.
But that was a lot smaller. And in its attempt to get out, it flew and went straight through the glass.
Oh, wow.
Because it's quite thin glass on the front, because they're like period windows, they're really old windows. And just made like a little perfect circle where it just went straight through.
That's so
crazy. So it managed to escape itself.
It was like a diamond cutter.
Absolutely crazy.
Straight through the glass.
They've also had a peacock in the front garden. That was many years ago, when a peacock escaped from... I can't remember where it escaped from, because it wasn't the zoo. It must have been like one of the parks or something where they had them. Well, it was actually a peahen. So a female peacock. And it was, there were just, there were messages in, like the local sort of groups and things saying, has anyone seen this really large bird? And my dad has all these pictures of it sat on the fence and the gate in the front garden.
Great.
And then there's 2 stories. 2 more stories, cat related. There was the cat that followed my parents' cat into their house while no one else was there, a stray cat, and then obviously couldn't get out because it was a microchip cat flap, so it couldn't get back out. Peed and did its business all over the house. My mum came home and had to try and wrestle this cat out of the house, which attacked her, bit her. She ended up in hospital because she had to have antibiotics and have it cleaned and dressed because...
And people say cats are nice.
Well, they are nice, but, he was freaked out and, anyway, I can't really justify him. So I had to go over and clean up a lot of mess because my poor mum was in hospital. And then I think you remember the first time you came over to my parents' house.
Yes.
The very first time you met them.
That was Easter of 2008.
Yeah, and they just had the very small bathroom at the top of the house redone and new flooring laid. And that whole day, they had a little cat called George, and nobody had seen George. And there was a whole big thing, what's happened to George? Where has she gone? What's going on? Until
That confused me as well, because George was not a he.
George was a he when he came, and then it turned out that George was a she.
Ah,
So
it's like Hagrid's dragon, Norbert.
yeah, so we just kept the name George. Yeah, it turned out that when the guy had been fitting the floor, he hadn't realised that she had got under the floorboards and had basically sealed her in. And so on Easter Sunday, whilst we were having, cooking this amazing lunch, my dad had to pull up the brand new floor, a couple of tiles, in order to rescue George the cat. So that was all quite dramatic for poor George.
And your mum had just had surgery.
And my mum had just had gallbladder surgery.
So there I am, sat downstairs, meeting the family for the first time. And this was my introduction.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
Well, it's like this is just the kind of things that happen in our family. So you have to get used to it.
Apparently so.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the stories that kind of initiated this
episode.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the pigeon story?
Oh, you should.
Okay.
Unlike your dad in that situation, I have no shame.
Yeah, you ran away.
I ran away.
So in the flat that we lived in before we moved here, we were on the 9th floor, and we had these windows that could only open a few inches. They had like a lock on them, so you couldn't actually open them any more than that ever.
Which is good. It was a safety thing.
Yeah, because you're so high up, obviously. And I was about 6 months pregnant, and I had just put Jake to bed, gone into our bedroom to find a big fat wood pigeon sat on the inside of the window on the little ledge. And I told you came, heard the bird flapping around, because again, the bird panicked, doing its business all over Alice's baby cot that was all there ready for her. And you ran away. You left me 6 months pregnant to wrestle this pigeon, and you ran off back into the living room.
I could have called for help. I could have called for help.
You could have, but you didn't.
I could have.
You could have, but you didn't. You ran away. And the ridiculous thing was, I don't know how that bird got through that gap, because it was huge. And I had I had to sort of chase it around, and eventually I managed to sort of encourage it to somehow fit back through. I don't even know how, to be honest. But we did manage to get it out, and then had to disinfect and scrub every inch of that room, because, it was not so fun.
No.
But yeah.
Well,
Animals
I didn't want a
breaking into
face full of
houses.
bird, to be fair, and I couldn't see it coming, and just...
And I get that. But you could have stood round the corner and given me moral support.
I did.
No, you didn't. You ran into the living room.
No. I was just by the door. Just by the door.
No, you ran. You ran as fast as your legs could carry you.
No, I was there. I was there in spirit.
Okay.
Right there.
If you say so.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Well,
But yeah.
The funny thing about your squirrel story is that the same thing happened to my mum, because she lived in a big Victorian basement flat back in the day. And I guess it used to be a fireplace, but it was subsequently fitted with a gas fire. And so the chimney still lived there and behind it. We didn't use the fireplace because you couldn't. But one day, and it wasn't, I suppose it wasn't that well fitted or something. You could see around the edges. One day, apparently, a hamster fell out of the bottom. And it didn't come in from the outside. Apparently, it was a neighbour's hamster. So I guess all the fires were above each other, Yeah. And it must have crawled in behind their fire, found the way to the chimney, and fell down the chimney into my mum's house.
I think I've read previous, nothing to do with this, but, in the past, I've read stories of hamsters doing the same thing, ending up in next door's houses because they've gone up into the attic and then through the space into the next house and come down. We once lost a hamster in a space somewhere in the house. I think I don't know, never came back anyway.
Strange.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for this, apparently. I think I was at boarding school at the time, so I heard about it secondhand. But I did hear that my mum jumped up onto the sofa and let Moses deal with it. I can well
Aw,
believe.
poor little hamster.
And you never said where your sister was in all of this, because that's the funniest part of the whole thing.
Oh, she was upstairs the whole time. She'd gone upstairs to do something, I think, and her room is 2 floors above. So even with all this commotion and screaming, this is with the squirrel,
Yeah.
she had no idea. And it all happened so quickly.
You said it was about 4 to 10 minutes kind of thing, wasn't it? It wasn't long at
It
all.
wasn't even, yeah, it was 4 or 5 minutes. It was so quick because obviously we had to get it out before the dogs got it.
And used it as a live chew toy.
Oh, poor squirrel. But yeah, and the poor kids, because they were holding on to the dogs and, you know, the dogs were frantically trying to get out of their arms in order to get to the squirrel. They had scratches. Jake had scratches all up his arms. Alice had scratches across her belly, you know, which is not the dog's fault. Like, it's their instinct.
Yeah.
Hunt the creature. But
That's crazy stuff.
yeah, it was a story, that's for sure.
And then we put the call out
We did.
and we got some pretty interesting responses, didn't we?
We did. Yes. So there's a lot for me to read. So I apologize if I trip over my words and stuff. But we'll
It's okay.
see
You may
how we go.
pause for water.
Okay. So we'll start with one from Sean.
Yeah.
So he says,
Did
clear
he?
the throat before I start. He says, I got off the train in the rain. I must have been 10, 11 years old. No phone, no announcements of the stops either, not on my local Valleys line. I had to count the stops and hope as a rule. Clearly, as I plodded on and nothing felt familiar, I realised I'd miscounted on this occasion. One thing I do want clarification, because we talked about this, didn't we? The idea of a 10, 11-year-old being on trains like that completely by themselves kind of freaks me out a little bit. But
What I'm going to do at the end of the episodes, I'm taking notes. I'm getting all the names of the contributors and I'm going to tag them in it.
Oh,
so
cool.
hopefully
Okay, great.
they can see this and respond to the queries.
So you can tell
right?
us, Sean.
Yeah, sure. We
by
did want to know.
the sound of the story, you were by yourself, but
I mean, I have been on a train at that age, maybe a little older, to go from London to Worcester, like we talked about.
but you would have, it would be easier for you to get off, or you'd have somebody to get you off. No.
No, there wasn't really assistance in those days as such.
Okay.
you-
But
you
it
put
would
on-
announce. I mean, these are trains that don't announce, as he's saying.
They're
You-
supposed to announce, I think. But yeah, maybe it's
Okay.
possible that he was on like a massively rural line or something and they didn't have the
Well,
system
I
in place.
assume so, because that's what he says, the local valleys.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, you know, even now you can go to places where that doesn't happen. It's not supposed to be that way. And even, for example, I came home like an underground train once didn't announce. I just had to know that Paddington was super squeaky. And then I was, you know, I know where I am from there.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's quite nerve-wracking though.
Okay, so let's continue. So he says, so the rain keeps blattering and blustering, and I keep walking. There's fences and walls, and I hope that soon I'll come to something vaguely familiar. I have 10p for a phone box if I can find one, or I'll just ask the next person I hear. I pause. I hear someone, maybe. I walk a bit further on. Yes, that does sound like breathing. Hello, I exclaim. I presume Carefully is back the other way. Could you tell me where I am, please? The answer was nay. I could... Oh, my phone has covered the word. I can't see the word.
Oh no.
It might be believe. I could not believe I was talking to a horse.
Yes.
I'm really sorry if that's not the right word, but my
It
phone
would have to be with that.
has covered. Yeah, so I'm assuming that. So yeah, so he thought he could hear somebody breathing, and actually he could hear the breathing of a horse.
It's horse breathing.
Horse breath. And they do have quite noisy
Noses.
noisy noses. Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
they do.
Oh wow, that's really crazy. And the thing is, Worcester had horses, so around the football pitch, right? You could be playing football late at night, and if your ball goes over the fence, you kind of wander around a bit, and you're in the horse field, and they would come and nudge you.
Aw, I like that.
Mad horses, and they were big too.
Yeah, horses are big. Okay, so the next one we have is from Claire. She says, we have an even weirder animal encounter. One Sunday morning years ago, a deer somehow got into the garden out of the house, into the garden of the house behind ours, then over the one-story workshop at the bottom of the garden, then through the open back door into the house, where it thrashed about until my mum managed to get it out of the front door. I was so scared that I hid upstairs.
Oh my gosh.
That is quite scary.
Yes.
A deer.
An actual deer.
An actual deer. I mean, they're quite big, but, you know, even a little deer would be quite crazy.
Just a little bit.
Next, we have Eden.
Yeah.
She says, one night I was watching TV with my grandma and cousins in our farmhouse. My cousin screams, "There's a rat on the TV." And I'm like, "Why are you screaming? It's an image of a rat on a TV." She said, "No, there's a rat crawling down the TV." And then I screamed. That is quite scary.
You don't, that's not what you want.
No, I mean, I love rats, but pet rats, not
I was talking to
not live rats.
Scott about this morning, about our experience with rats in the ceiling.
Oh, gosh.
Because of his story that's coming in a bit.
Yeah.
But like, no.
We did have the rat in the ceiling that got in there and kept scuttling around, and that was
Did not
quite
like.
awful. So another one from Eden. They said, I also have another. I was in an apartment. We kept hearing scratching in the walls. It's funny, we were just talking about this. We called maintenance because we were worried a rat was going to stink. Mm-hmm. Turned out he found a little hamster, but surely had to be close to death. He took it home with him.
Aha.
Poor little hamster.
Probably another neighbour's pet.
Probably.
Climbing into its spaces, as we discussed.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing.
Okay.
They do that.
This is going to be a really long one because I think it's 2 in 1. And again, covers. There's like a little thing that covers so I can't see all of the word, but I think I'll be able to figure it out. But it is long. So again, I apologise if I trip over the words.
Who's this from?
This is, and I feel like we've had a response from this person before and I said the name and then they corrected us. So maybe you can remember.
Okay.
Kalia?
It's Carlia.
Carlia.
Yes. Carlia.
Carlia. Okay.
Because I remember they wrote it out for us, didn't they?
Yeah, but I couldn't remember. I know that I'd seen it. I just couldn't remember.
Yes.
So they say, I've got 2. Well, sort of. Kind of gross. But we used to have this absolutely crazy cat who would kill and bring home all kinds of random animals and leave them either in our garage or our front stairs. We live in the country and she was an outdoor cat. Birds, squirrels, big rabbits. I think even a snake one time. You name it, the cat would at least try to kill it. Made worse by the fact that she was all white, so she'd come home covered in blood from her kills, and it would blatantly show. That's so gross. She was pretty sweet around us, but outside she was absolutely ruthless. This cat was freaking crazy. Another one I personally had was scary in the moment, but turned out to be pretty boring later. So it was summer. I can't remember if this was last year or 2 years ago, but this, sorry, I have completely tripped over my words now. For this to make sense, you need to know that the door from our house to our garage doesn't close well, so it's very easy to open if you push it hard enough. So I'm walking and planning to go outside where my family is when I run into this giant animal just sitting in the middle of my hallway by the front door.
I remember reading
Probably as tall as my waist, long, rough fur. Sorry, while I just skip to the next bit. Long, rough fur and ears on its head that were up. I'm utterly confused as WTF this thing is. It's certainly friendly enough when I touched it, but there was no way I was going to mess with some strange animal that could probably attack me if I made it. Again, we live in the country, so for all I know, this thing's some wild something that I should not be screwing with.
Yes.
I was just about to go outside and tell my family that there was a giant animal in the house when I hear my mum come up to the door and go, "Bella." Turns out our neighbour's German Shepherd Bella had broken into our house through the garage door because they had left the outside door open, and she'd been able to walk through the garage, shove herself through the interior door and walk through our house. To be clear, We watch this dog sometimes. So it's not like she just randomly came over. She knows us and our house and likes our dog. I just hadn't really petted her before. So I, in my illogical WTF moment, thought she was some kind of wild thing that had broken into our house.
That's crazy stuff.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? If you
Yeah.
sort of came across...
You'd be kind of concerned.
You would be.
But what I think is interesting is it didn't lick or bark or anything to give like an idea. It was trolling her.
Maybe. Or it just knew, be really calm. It was just really chilled and felt comfortable in her presence.
Yeah.
Because it knew her.
That's just quite funny. It's not funny in the moment, but it's funnier now.
Well, you didn't freak out though. That's the thing. If you'd freaked out and screamed and ran away, you might have triggered it had it been a wild animal.
Yeah.
Next one we have is from Thai Black Squirrel.
Yes. Thai black squirrel.
Thai Black Squirrel.
Is it she who came down the chimney?
Yeah, possibly. Where to start? Most recent would be my guide dog in training escaping in a public park. It was both funny and scary. Scary because I didn't want anything happening to her. Funny because she had totally shocked me with her escape. I tethered her to a table and stepped away to catch a closer video? Yeah, a closer video of what some of the festival we were at. And she saw another dog and apparently backed straight out of her harness, ditching it, and went off to play with the other dog. She was captured and reconfined, attached to me instead of the table. No more escaping that night or after.
Houdini, the guide dog.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I have seen other dogs do that before where they do just go backwards through their harness. Just that's why
they do that.
Penny has quite a tight harness. But yeah. This one is from Marion.
Mm-hmm.
File under Animal Rescue, Role Reversal Edition. Out visiting the zoo lady for the weekend about 7-ish years ago. And one night, my sinuses staged a major revolt so that I woke up so dizzy I couldn't walk, which was a problem because I needed the restroom. As I fell back onto the couch and began plotting how to crawl to the dining room where I knew there was a quad cane, when presently I heard meow. Hi, Nacho, I said to the cat. This was followed promptly by Joe's voice. What's up? Yay, salvation, I exclaimed my dilemma, and she brought me the cane, with which I staggered to the restroom, came back out and was greeted with Benadryl and some of the Verners I'd brought out for her. I don't know what that is.
I do not know this word.
Maybe is a medical, like
That's
a medicine or something we're not sure about. By the by, oh, here we go. By the by, Verners, however you say it, is a specific brand of ginger ale found apparently only in Michigan, where I and Joe and I both grew up.
Oh, okay. Well, you could say it's for medicinal purposes then.
Yeah.
I think that works. I mean, it is said,
so.
Is it not?
So the cat was there to help out, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think you replied, didn't you? Like guide cat as opposed to
I did.
the guide dog.
Well, I know that they've had guide ponies at some places.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah. I can't imagine our cat being a guide cat for you.
She doesn't like me.
She doesn't like you, and the feeling is very mutual.
Yes.
Yeah. The next is from Dan. Many years ago, we got a dog named Sadie. Poor thing had separation anxiety and was quite a pain. Case in point, last day we had her, I heard my bedroom door open and there she was. It was weird because nobody else was home and my folks crated her before leaving. I go into the room where the crate was, floor was a mess and the crate was destroyed. Sadie wanted out so badly that she bent the steel bars with her teeth to get out.
Okay.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
That is really sad. Poor Sadie.
It's a sad thing when that can happen.
Yeah. Okay, so the last one we have is the rat story.
It's a long one.
It is a long one. So Scott and the rats.
Yeah, that's all I thought to call it.
Yeah. No, I think it's perfect. Okay, so For anyone who hasn't spent time with rats, they sneeze a lot. They sneeze way more often than they squeak. To me, their sneezes usually sound like they're coming out of an animal that's bigger than a rat, and their squeaks often sound smaller than I would expect. But not Wendy, one of our early rescue rats. Wendy had a loud, short sneeze that was super percussive.
Yes.
It sounded kind of like a crispy hi-hat hit in a trap song. And by contrast, she had a squeak so gravelly it sounded like she'd smoked 20 a day for as many years as my nan. A sneeze.
That's really great.
It's really good,
imagery.
isn't it? A sneeze turned out to be the first sign that Wendy was the boss of me, her big, blind, lumbering uncle. I was alone overnight with the rats for the first time since we'd started looking after them, doing the rounds before I headed to bed, topping up water and putting fresh food into their cages. As I closed the cage Wendy was living in, I noticed the other rat who lived with her, my guy Phil. I just think that's so cool. We got Wendy and Phil. Leaning out of the cage with his head turning this way and that, scanning the room. And then I heard it. The faint but unmistakable tss, a little ratty sneeze drifting in from the hall. I dashed around, closing all the doors to keep her in the hall and crouched down, ready to scoop her up whenever I next heard her. And I wait. I wait for what feels like forever. At some point, it occurs that offering a treat might bring her out of hiding. So I head to the kitchen, trying my best to slip through the doors with the opening for mere milliseconds along the way. But as I finish rummaging around and opening a fresh bag of banana chips, I hear another tss right by my feet. I dropped it like it's hot. Translation, dropped the banana chip and put my back out. And thus began the cycle. I'd hear a sneeze, rush over to where I'd heard it, and crunch, hunch, lay there in wait. Though I'd never been able to hear her on approach, each time she'd sneak up, boot me on the nose or a paw, then just like that, she'd be gone.
You can picture it, can't you?
Yeah, 100%. Having had pet rats, I know exactly what he's talking about. I'd like to be able to say I outsmarted her, but in reality, she led me on a clumsy dance around the flat for an hour and 45 minutes, and eventually it was Wendy that called time on the game. Having conclusively defeated me, she scampered back with no attempt to keep quiet, sat on my foot and waited to be scooped up.
Cheeky little rat.
Super cheeky little rat. But I love it. They are really cheeky. They're great little pets. I absolutely adored them when I had them.
They sound a lot nicer than the ones we've dealt with, so I can appreciate that.
Definitely. They're amazing. The first rat, the second rat that I had was a male called Merlin because he was a blue merle breed. Mm-hmm. And he was like a pet dog. He would come and snuggle up with me. And when I would, I was a teenager, so teenagers get sad and they cry a lot. When I would cry, he would come and he would like lick the tears off my cheek, which sounds really gross, I know, if you're not an animal person. But it was very, very sweet. He was honestly just the best pet ever.
So you'd get a pet rat?
I probably wouldn't now, not with the animals that we have, because it wouldn't be fair. They need a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. A lot of attention and time spent with them and everything. And I just couldn't do that, not with Penny, who would want to eat him.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, but I do love them. And that concludes the animal stories or animal encounters of the Stroonge kind today.
Apart from one more thing.
Apart from...
I have a thing. Do you remember when I first came to your flat?
When you first came to my flat?
Yeah, the first time, or maybe the second anyway. One of those 2 times.
Yeah.
What was in your bath?
In my bath?
Yes.
I have no idea. I can't remember that at all. What was it?
We'll call it Malfoy, but it was a ferret.
Oh, the ferret. That was my best friend at the time's ferret, and I must have been looking after it.
You were. And I told Scott this morning. I was like, yeah, I went to my girlfriend's flat.
I not remembered that at all.
And the introduction I had was, oh, don't mind if you hear noises in the bathroom. There's a ferret in the bath. That was my introduction to your flat.
Oh, dear.
I can't say I wasn't confused because I was
can imagine.
Deeply confused.
Yeah, I think I must have been looking after her for the weekend.
You were.
Wow.
That
That's
was
really,
that was
really
my
funny.
introduction to your flat. It was
I didn't remember that at all. Anyway.
There you go.
Yes.
Animal encounters of the strange
Animal
kind.
encounters. But to finish off, I do have 2 very small Stroonge news stories, animal related.
Right, you are.
One which actually I have to thank Ed for reminding me of this, because I had seen the video on TikTok but then forgotten about it, and he sent it to me the other day, so it reminded me.
Excellent.
But there is a video, and it has been posted on BBC News, where you can see an enormous hungry elephant walk into a Thai grocery store to help himself to the snacks.
That's so
And
crazy.
he fills the entire, like his head, the top of his head is touching the ceiling. He's, full-sized, big male elephant, and the people are trying to encourage him and shoo him out. And he's just like, no, I'm hungry. I'm going to have something to eat.
Oh no.
So, yeah, I think in the end, it said that he took 9 bags of sweet rice crackers, a sandwich, and some bananas before they managed to get him out.
How the hell?
Yeah. So he was a hungry elephant.
Did he make a massive shelf mess?
He must have done, the size of him, honestly. And then the other story that I had come across was about a buzzard, which is a type of bird called Brenda.
Oh yeah.
And it said that children in a school in Havering were having to stay inside during break time because Brenda the buzzard might attack them. She had made a nest really close by and was guarding her eggs. So anytime that anybody came anywhere near, she would swoop down and, peck and attack people.
Oh, lovely.
So they had to keep the kids in. So the children were creating buzzard-based artwork and writing stories about Brenda, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Brenda the attacking buzzard.
I feel like now you've got to go out with a big fedora on or an umbrella over your head.
Yeah.
Made of metal.
Definitely. Because birds can be aggressive.
Indeedly.
Yeah.
So thank you to all the participants this week, of which there have been quite a few.
They have.
I'm trying to collect all the names to put them into a post at the end. So if you don't see a name, it's not because I didn't want to. It's because I couldn't find it.
Also, if I have missed and you have sent us,
we can do a part 2.
then we can always do a part 2. But also I apologise because I had to sort of go through an awful lot of messages because we'd had other conversations and stuff, and it all got a bit tangled up.
It does that.
Yeah, it did. But so if we have missed you, it's not because we meant to or didn't find your story interesting. Just maybe send it to us again and
or point it out.
Yeah, that would be great.
But it's been quite nice having this listener participation because it's really fun.
Definitely.
So I should also say hello to Audio Mo because I'm going to tag this. This is Audio Mo, by the way. This is the month of June, and this is the 15th year that Audio Mo has been running. And it's every day in June if you want to, or just sometime. You post with the hashtag Audio Mo tag, and you post your audio there, and it could be anything. And it gets shared by and seen by a community of people that follow the hashtag. And it's on lots of platforms. I know it used to be on X/Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, maybe even Facebook, I'm not sure. So hello to anybody that may come to us from there, and to our main listeners, which would be Marie and Louis and Suzanne and Dan, which I like saying. That's quite fun, isn't it? And maybe your sister Charlotte as well, if she's still there.
She usually is. Sometimes she comes a bit late, but she's usually there.
My mate Andrew up in Wales. Yes. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
And as I say every week, if you're new, welcome, and if you're old, welcome back. And that's the end of us for the week. And we shall see you next time.
Bye. So press OK. Because it's on your network, and then we just need to type in. Shall I just do it? Because I think it'd be easier.
Oh, nice big keyboard right on the touch screen, eh?
Yeah.
Wow, this is so exciting. And the
So
music is
it's
very me.
Connecting console to network device, and now network device to internet. Successfully connected.